Level 1, the paranoia. It's 8 p.m. on a Tuesday, your gas light is on, but you drive past 3 convenience stores. To reach a high-end gas station in a wealthy zip code, you walk inside, the floor is spotless. You ask the cashier for 2 Powerball tickets. When the total rings up, you do not use your debit card. You open your wallet, bypass the plastic, and pull a crumpled, sweat-stained $20 bill. From the deepest fold, you hand it over. Why do you do this? Because your twice-bankrupt uncle and the guys who smoke generic cigarettes in the warehouse break room taught you the rules of the world. They sat you down and explained the conspiracy. First, the lottery commission is corrupt. They only seed the winning tickets in the rich neighborhoods to keep the wealth contained. Second, never use a bank card. If you win, the government algorithms will track your transaction history, freeze your accounts, and confiscate your winnings before you even see a dime. You walk out of the sliding glass doors, carefully slipping the printed tickets behind the rubber case of your smartphone. You slide into the driver's seat. You feel incredibly smart. You feel like a ghost in the machine. You think you've outplayed the system. But I want you to freeze this frame and look closely at what you just did. You just burned a half-gallon of fuel. You desperately need to get to work tomorrow. Driven entirely by the financial advice of men who cannot even pay their own rent. You are operating on a poor man's paranoia, a twisted, defensive logic, born in the minds of people who have been crushed by a system they don't understand. Right now, this paranoia is just a harmless delusion. It only costs you $20 and a little extra driving time. But here is the terrifying question. What happens when this exact same brain, wired by scarcity, steeped in working-class conspiracies, and terrified of invisible authorities, is suddenly handed $20 million in liquid capital? The destruction of your life doesn't start the day you run out of money. It doesn't start when you buy a yacht or throw a massive party. Your ruin starts the exact second those numbers match. Level 2. The validation, Wednesday night, 11:14 p.m. The apartment is dark, except for the green, blinking clock on your decade-old microwave. The low hum of the refrigerator is the only sound in the room. You sit at your scratched dining table, refreshing the lottery website on your phone. The page loads 14, 22, 38, 45, 51. Powerball 19. You look at the screen. You look down at the piece of paper in your hand. You look back at the screen. A perfect match. You don't scream, you don't jump up and down, you don't pop champagne, you just sit there in your $1,250 a month crappy apartment, listening to a high-pitched, deafening ringing developing in your ears. Your heart rate drops, your hands go numb. But right here in the silence of this life-altering moment, the fatal flaw is born. The first thought that crystallizes in your mind is not, "I am so incredibly lucky." Your first thought is, "I won. My uncle was right. Driving to the rich neighborhood worked. The system is exactly what I thought it was." This is the poison. This is the psychological venom that will ultimately kill you. You just experienced a 1 in 29 to million statistical anomaly, an absolute mathematical accident. But your brain refuses to process it as luck. Your ego hijacks the narrative. You mistake a random stroke of astronomical fortune for your own calculated genius. You believe that your street smarts manipulated the universe. You walk toward that $18.4 million after tax lump sum payout with a terrifying, unearned arrogance. You now believe you are smarter than the rules of reality. Level 3, the illusion of restraint. You tell yourself you aren't going to be a statistic. You've seen the documentaries. You know about the idiots who win the jackpot, buy mansions, throw millions at exotic dancers, and end up living in a trailer park 5 years later. You are different. You are careful. You know the value of a hard-earned dollar. So, you play the role of the humble millionaire. You pay off your student loans. You pay off your mother's mortgage. You don't buy a Ferrari or a Lamborghini. Instead, you go to the dealership and buy a fully loaded, matte black Ford Raptor truck in straight cash because in your cultural framework, a massive, gas-guzzling truck isn't a frivolous luxury. It's the ultimate symbol of practical working-class success. You keep your old jeans. You still drink the same cheap beer. You think you are being incredibly rational. You pat yourself on the back for your restraint. But this is an illusion. You are simply running rich hardware on a poor man's operating system. You are attempting to navigate a labyrinth of generational capital with a map drawn by warehouse workers. You think you are controlling the money because you aren't spending it on yachts. But the truth is, you have no reverence for the capital. You don't understand inflation, tax structuring, or compound yield. You don't respect the money because Deep in your subconscious, you still believe you outsmarted the world to get it. You think you can do it again. You are using the defense mechanisms of extreme poverty to manage the artillery of extreme wealth, and it is a catastrophic mismatch. Level 4, the mutation. Then comes the social tear, the silent, violent mutation of your reality. It happens subtly at first. You are sitting at a diner with your childhood best friend, the guy who covered for you when you were broke, the guy who knows all your secrets. You finish your burgers, the waitress drops the check on the table. For 2 agonizing seconds, nobody moves. He looks at the little black leather booklet. Then he looks at you. You look at him. The silence is deafening. The old dynamic is dead. If you don't pick up the check, you are a stingy, selfish monster who forgot where he came from. If you do pick it up, you are the patronizing rich guy throwing crumbs at a peasant. When your cousin asks for a $50,000 loan for his failing roofing business, you give it to him, but in doing so, you strip him of his dignity. Your charity becomes a permanent, glaring reminder of his lifelong inadequacy. When he inevitably defaults on the loan, he won't apologize. He will resent you. Because to him, $50,000 is your pocket change. Why should he pay back a bank? Within 18 months, you realize you are no longer a human being. Your personality, your history, your memories, they are all erased. You have been reduced to an abstract concept. You are a walking ATM, a liquidity provider for a network of desperate people. Every single text message, every phone call, every "how have you been" suddenly feels like a slow, subtle manipulation to get their hands on your money. Trust dissolves into a paranoid calculus. You isolate yourself because isolation is the only place where nobody is asking for a wire transfer. Level 5, the void. It is the first Tuesday morning after you finally quit your job. You wake up at 10:30 a.m. There is no alarm clock screaming at you. There is no abusive supervisor waiting to write you up for being late. There is no looming threat of an eviction notice. You have successfully removed every single have to do from your existence. You step out onto the balcony of your new, sterile penthouse. You look out at the city skyline and you wait for the overwhelming rush of freedom and happiness to wash over you, but it doesn't come. Instead, you find a vacuum. For your entire adult life, your identity was forged in the fire of friction. You were defined by the struggle. You were defined by the bills you had to outrun, the shifts you had to survive, the exhaustion you had to endure. Poverty is a prison, yes, but it is a highly structured prison. It gives you a daily, non-negotiable objective: survive. Now, the friction is gone. Without the daily struggle, your survival instincts collapse in on themselves. Wealthy people, the ones who built it, fill their time managing assets, making high-stakes decisions, and expanding their empire. Their time is a weapon, but your time, you fill your time with absolutely nothing. The sheer volume of empty, unstructured hours begins to corrode your mind. A deep, existential boredom sets in, and soon, you desperately begin to crave stimulation, risk, and chaos, just to feel the friction again, just to prove to yourself that you are still alive. Level 6, the hemorrhage. This is where the money actually disappears. It's not spent on private jets. It is bled out in quiet, air-conditioned conference rooms. Because you fundamentally believe your smarts won you the lottery, your ego demands that you become a businessman. You need to prove to the world that you aren't just a lucky lottery winner. You are a visionary. And remember your uncle? Remember the paranoia? You still don't trust traditional index funds or established banking institutions. You think Wall Street is a scam, so you start looking for alternative investments. You want to outsmart the system again. You start dumping millions into highly speculative Silicon Valley tech startups. You don't understand. You buy into shady, decentralized crypto mining operations based offshore, specifically because the founders promise it will keep your money hidden from the IRS. You surround yourself with men in tailored Patagonia vests and Rolexes. They smile at you. They pour you vintage scotch. They call you boss and partner. They don't rob you with a gun in a dark alley. They fleece you legally in broad daylight using financial jargon, liquidity pools, mezzanine financing, dilution clauses that you smile and nod at, pretending to comprehend. When unrefined, uneducated capital meets high-level financial predators, it doesn't even spill a drop of blood. There is no violence. The transfer of wealth is dead silent. You sign a few digital documents, and $3 million evaporates into a shell company. You wire $5 million into a protocol that gets hacked 3 days later. You are financially hemorrhaging, but because there are no physical wounds, you don't even realize you are bleeding to death. Level 7, the end of the line, 6.5 years later, you are 37 years old. You are sitting on the edge of a mattress in a rented duplex. You open the banking app on your phone. The loading icon spins. Available balance $1,214.50. The $18 million is gone. The friends are gone. The uncle who gave you the advice stopped returning your calls 2 years ago, when the well ran dry. But here is the most devastating part of the story. Going back to being broke isn't the real tragedy. You've been broke before. You know how to survive on ramen and tap water. The true tragedy is that you can never go back to being the man you were. You can never go back to being the guy in the crappy apartment who actually had hope, who actually believed that if he just hit the right numbers, everything would be perfect. The fantasy has been permanently murdered. The money didn't destroy your life. The money destroyed your appetite for survival. It gave you everything, only to show you that you were entirely unequipped to hold on to anything. It is Tuesday night, 8 p.m. You are sitting in the driver's seat of your battered sedan. The gas light is on. You are parked at that exact same pristine, high-end gas station in the wealthy zip code. You look through the glass doors at the cashier, standing by the lottery terminal. You reach into your pocket. You have a $20 bill. You want to walk in. You want to buy a ticket. You want to start the dream over again, but you don't move. Your hand falls off the steering wheel. You realize with a crushing weight on your chest that you don't even have the energy to pick the numbers anymore. The math didn't fail you. The system didn't fail you. The math just finally corrected itself. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. See you in the next.